Hey crafty friends, it's Sharna here with a new card featuring some new stamps by Waffle Flower. I'm going to use this winter hamster stamp set, and I'm going to start on the water media mat and do some ink blending with some Distress Oxides. And I'm just figuring out how far down I need to come on the card. So I'm starting with lilac color. This is faded lilac. And I'm just blending it on. I'm using a really heavy hand here, just because it's easier to blend these together the more ink you have on the paper. So I do go back and forth between the colors to get a really smooth blend. And I felt that this was a little too dark, so I came back in with the lighter color. And I used the ink that was already on the brush for the darker color. And that was Blueprint Sketch for the darker color. So now I want to add some snowfall. I'm going to use some Copic Opaque White. I'm just testing it out before I go straight to paper. And now I'm going to work with the layout. I did cut some hills out of some Nina Solar White cardstock here, and I'm just playing around with how I want to lay this out. And now let's get into some coloring. I do have the colors listed on the side of the screen for you, so you can go ahead and color along if you want to, and the marker caps are above. I will zoom in here for just a second. I didn't realize I was so far away when I started coloring. So on about the second stripe here, I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. I'm starting with the darker colors along the outside edge, just so I can give a center highlight and make them very round, since these are cute little chubby hamsters. And I decided to do a rainbow on this little hamster guy. I can't get all the way down to purple, but I do go down to indigo. They're just so cute. I can't get over it. I was so excited to receive this set. And these are the colors that I used for the blue/purple. They match that Blueprint Sketch really well. And I fill in his little arms because I forgot about them. And then I'm going to add a little warm gray to his earmuffs just to make them a little fluffy. And now I'm going to start on the hamster himself. So I am using the darker colors around the edge. And each of these hamsters have different patches, so I'm going to color them differently. And I went ahead and tried to keep a little bit of white parts on each of these, so I'm just going to use a couple warm grays anywhere that's white, just to give a little tiny bit of shading, so they're not so flat. And I decided to go lighter with this guy, so I'm using a couple of the YR colors, and I tend to like my hamsters lighter. Growing up, I had a bunch of little light colored hamsters, and so I'm always drawn to those colors when I'm coloring. And little white bellies also, so those are fun. I just shade around the edges, and I try to limit the number of markers that I'm using, just so there's not so many colors. So I'm going to reuse all these colors in their outfits, with the most obviously being the rainbow sweater, but you know, the reds and the greens, I'm going to use the same reds and the same greens over and over again, depending on what I'm coloring. And I added a little R20 to the cheeks and the nose on all of these. Sometimes I forget, and I will go back and do it at a later point. So since this guy had the same color sweater, or the same design sweater, I decided to keep the colors the same. And then I'm going to reverse them on the other guy. And they're so cute on their little sled. Again, I'm not paying particular attention to shading. I'm just keeping a center highlight, again, just to keep the roundness going. And I'm going to repeat a few of the colors. I just sometimes switch it out so that the hamster is darker and then their spots are lighter, or they have the lighter hamster with the darker spots. Again, all the marker colors are listed on the side for you, and I did try to keep the caps out, but I don't always remember. For some reason, I like to color with the caps in my hand. I find myself doing that over and over again, so I'm trying to relearn to put the caps down. This guy is the same colors as the other guy with his arms up, just because they're wearing the same things I thought they could be. brother and sister hamsters. And these guys are my favorite. I just love them hugging. So I went with the cooler browns on the hamster on the left. These are some of my favorite brown colors. This is the E40 markers. And I used the darker 47, 44 on the outside edge. And then for his face, I used the lighter E43 and E40. And for this one, I wanted more contrast against those cool grays, so I went for a really warm dark brown, just so they stand out against each other. And this is where I brought in that blue. It's the same blue from the rainbow sweater. I'm trying to color in all their accessories. So this one I gave the blue sweater to, and I switched it on the other guy. I gave him the blue scarf, just because I think it's really cute when couples match and they're out. And I used that same green again that I used previously, just to color in his little sweater. These are toned down versions. They're not very bright green. I tend to not be drawn to the really dark colors. So now we're going to move on to laying this out. And I wanted to give a little bit of dimension, so that bottom layer is going to be the one that's up on foam tape. And I'm just deciding where everybody should go. That's always the longest part of my card, is where everybody's going to end up, and where my sentiment is going to go. So I just stamped that out in some really dark black ink so it stands out against that dark blue. And I am going to make a mistake here. So I should have done this before I glued everything down, but it didn't occur to me. So I'm just adding a little bit of glue along the edges so I can add some chunky glitter. Because any excuse to use glitter during the holidays, right? And I'm just blending that edge in with a really cheap paintbrush that I don't care if I ruin it, just so there isn't a hard line at the bottom. And now we're going to put everybody down. So I'm trying to keep with the rule of 3 here. That's why they're grouped together. So I've got the 2 on the sled, and then the 2 at the top of the hill, and the 2 that are hugging at the bottom. And now I'm just going to fold the card base with my bone folder. Just make sure everything lines up. I have a problem with cutting my card bases too big. And I'm just wiping up the excess glitter there. And that's pretty much everything. Thanks for watching.